I mean, let me recount. I'll give you the sort of the thumbnail of what happened. But basically, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong Un are walking in Tiananmen Square,
Quite a
sort of
threesome you got
observing
there.
quite the
Yeah.
threesome, observing a military parade,
Hmm.
and Xi says to Putin, roughly, when we're 70, we're just a baby, right? We're just babies. And then Putin responds, unbelievably, at least, or believably,
Yeah.
depending how you would look at it, through continual organ transplantation, perhaps we can achieve immortality, right?
Yeah.
Wow. And then she responds, and this was the part where the light bulb goes off in my head.
Yeah.
Our target is 150 years.
甚至越活越年轻，甚至会长生不老。来预测呢，本世纪呢，可能
So 150 years is the kind of like a code. You can think of it like a code word. So there's the super elites in China have something called Project 981, and Project 981 is the super elite longevity project. And that indeed 150 years is the target of that project. So, having looked at this issue for over 20 years now,
Yeah.
it had never. I had compartmentalized these things. I knew there was a super elite longevity project,
Yeah.
and they do indeed live many more years than the average person. Okay,
Yeah.
already. And I knew there was forced organ harvesting, but I never connected the two so obviously, right?
Yeah.
Which is that through this continual organ transplant, through the availability of near instantaneous availability of organs for the super elites, they're actually living longer. And there's this crazy example that was sent to me a few years back. It was a eulogy of sorts, okay,
Right.
to a guy that basically, it was. This sounds super crazy,
You
right?
talk
Like
about it in your book. Yeah.
exactly
Right. Yeah.
super. Like people would think this is nuts, but someone actually wrote a eulogy that said, "Isn't it amazing how this guy had multiple organs transplanted and therefore lived longer?"
Yeah. But the other side to that is at what cost?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
how did he procure these organs?
Well, so you actually asked me a moment ago, right? How do people know about this?
Yeah.
Right? How do you find out? Well, so prior to 2006, and it still blows my mind, right? When we actually started reporting on this a lot, right? It was online. Like we have archived ads that were online that said, in a couple of weeks, you can get a new heart for this amount of cash, right? And then as soon as this became sort of reported on a little
Yeah.
bit, a lot, it those ads disappeared, and I'm guessing that the information stayed within these networks of hospitals and so on. I'll give you an example, right? Another thing I talk about in there is this former explant surgeon from Germany,
Yeah.
right? Explained to me this scenario where there's a woman who has this heavy drinking problem and clearly a very loose set of morals. And she has now gone to China to get a liver transplant 3 times. I think in under about a 10-year period, because she keeps needing she keeps drinking heavily, the livers keep getting compromised, and she just gets another one. I wouldn't have believed this is possible, except that this explant surgeon verified this scenario, right? And this is fairly recent. And he believes that the way that she got connected with China is through the local transplantation authority in the province where they worked.
So she's clearly a sociopathic person.
Well, it would seem, no, I
Very,
mean, because
at least selfish.
these things are so cosmic. But I was more ready to believe this because I remember back in 2007. Another example, David Kilgore, who was one of the hero researchers, may rest in peace. He's not with us anymore, unfortunately, but he interviewed a guy who was Taiwanese who had gone to China, had a very rare antibody condition in his body. And he went to China, and first kidney was rejected. So immediately they gave him a second, and then they gave him a third, and then they gave him a fourth, and none of those worked. So he goes back to Taiwan, okay, goes back on dialysis, comes back 4 months later, and they try a fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth kidney, and the eighth one is the one that holds. And David Kilgore interviewed the guy who actually had this done, right? So, again, unimaginable. things can happen when you have, on-demand organs available
So
from people.
8 different Chinese Falun Gong members were murdered for this guy's attempted new kidneys.
Most likely, yes. And this is one of the huge tragedies of this, right? They built this on the backs of the Falun Gong starting in 2000. The whole Chinese transplant industry grows geometrically from 2000 to 2005. Kind of I don't even say exponentially, geometrically, okay? And in 2005, it sort of starts to plateau, but grows a little more. And by the end of the 2000s, we've got 60 to 90,000 transplants a year being done. Okay, that's the best estimate. That's the range. It's very hard to estimate. This is a state secret. They don't have